Mics are live and we're starting the meeting.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening. We'll call to order the Yreka City Council closed session for December 5th, 2023, and our start time is 5:32. Good evening, everybody. Any public comment at this time? Anybody online for public comments? No? Okay. I will close close the public comment and go into closed session. All right.
Actually,
Who's go?
we're still on.
Are we still on recording or no?
Mr. Mayor, members, before we break into closed session, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there is an item that is not listed on the agenda. It would be one item regarding legal counsel regarding potential for litigation against the city. This relates to a public contracting matter, and we request that the city council add this item as having come up after the posting of the agenda and requiring immediate action. This would require a 2/3 vote of members present, and making the finding that this came up after the posting and requires immediate action. It did come up actually within the last hour, to my knowledge, and requires that the council consider this item prior to the next council meeting.
All right. Thank you. So you want to put it on the agenda for tonight or move it?
Correct. And
Okay.
that would require a motion to add this item.
Okay. What are the wishes of the council to add the item that Mr. Jared has brought to our attention to add to the closed session? Okay. I have a motion from Councilman Davis.
There you go.
Oh.
I don't know if it's recorded.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I move to add the item that Andrew is requesting.
Okay. I have a motion from Councilman Davis. And a second from Councilman Baker. I'll do roll call. Councilman Cake?
Aye.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman McCoy? Aye. And aye. All right. So the motion passes to go ahead and add that item onto for the agenda for this evening. All right. Good evening, everybody. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the flag of one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Yreka City Council for December 5th, 2023. Session starts at 6:32 p.m. We do have no reportable action on the closed session portion of our meeting. Just want to remind everybody to silence their cell phones at this time. Mr. J.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh.
council, for the record, will be the reportable action.
Oh.
The council considered items A, B, and C during closed session. One item was added relating to conference legal counsel regarding one item of the federal litigation and anticipated litigation or potential for litigation as item E. And to discuss items D and E, the council will reconvene into closed session at the conclusion of open tonight.
All right. Yeah. I'm not to repeat all that, right? Okay. All right. So this is item number 5. This is special presentations and our announcements. This time slot is for informational presentations, appointments, and awards be presented by the city council or by the city council or to the city council. Looks like the Yreka Volunteer Fire Department report Fire Chief Jerry Lemus. Mr. Ledbetter? Is that what we have?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're gonna have Fire Chief Lemos is gonna give up a very brief presentation, and it's going to be a part of multiple presentations that we plan on having Chief Lemos give either at one council meeting per month or possibly more, just as he's just giving information about how things are currently operating or historically have operated within the fire department.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Good evening, Chief Lemus.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and esteemed guests of the public. So I thought it would be appropriate within the context of what we've been working on to provide you with an update of Yreka Fire Department and where we're at this juncture in our storied history, storied history. So the first slide, just you can see our wonderful equipment we have, and our beautiful station. That's actually, it looks good there. I mean, it's a nice paint job. It's showing up nice, and the old apparatus too shine really nice. Anyway, moving on. So this has to do with, my presentation has to do with not only just the status of where we're at, but kind of the things that we're currently facing. So first slide here is basically an indication of the medical and traditional alarms that we've experienced through, from 1990 through 2022. And with that, the orange tipped portions of the graph there are the traditional alarms. And you can see that would be like structure fires, wildland fires, fires in general, traffic accidents, not public assist so much, but then the blue indicates over time, you can see the increase in the medical responses. So I joined the department in 1994, and we were fairly early on in providing medical responses to the community. Started probably 1990-ish, maybe, where we had maybe one call all year. And then 92, you can kind of just see it. And then 94, I remember reading the minutes, and our former secretary, Tom Colburn, kept track of all the calls. And that was, you can see in 94 it started, and it's just gone, straight up from the growing exponentially from there. So that's what we're facing currently, is increased medical calls. So just an indication there. Next slide. And here, I wanted to make sure that we included this as part of the discussion as well, because this is really where the dilemma starts. Over time, we've experienced the rapid increase or the continued increase in medical call requests and a diminishing volunteer staff. So during that time, I think when I got in, there was 40 plus members, and we've shrunk down to about 20 to 22. And of those 20 to 22, you might have a core group of 8 to 10 that really do the lion's share of the work, and even less of those that want to and are able to respond to the medical calls. So it's pretty obvious to see where that is going. Difficult to maintain, difficult to sustain. Next slide, please. And here, this slide is essentially showing the workload expressed as the number of alarms per volunteer. So both of these have trend lines. You can see the dotted lines there. So same as what I've been explaining in the first two, the trend is upward on the workload, and the number of alarms expected to be or if you had everybody going, it would be wonderful, but it's just job and life life is kind of what happens to even to volunteers. So they're not able to respond to them all. So the workload continues to climb. Like I said, it's a tough expectation for when you have fewer and fewer volunteers. Okay, next slide. And last slide here. So we have over time, the number of volunteers here, and you can see with the number one responder there, basically on the left there, responding to about 55% of the calls. I mean, that's incredible. When I thought I was really doing well back in the day,
in responding, I never reach 50%. And my chief duties kind of preclude me from running calls, during the day unless they're shorthanded or some other, something else comes up. But you can see 55% out of 2,000, say, we'll just use that as a rough figure. That's a lot of time away from your loved ones, from your job, possibly. I think in this case, I have a good idea who that is, and it's no surprise. But nonetheless, you see there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, the bulk of the calls are handled by those 4 individuals. My fear is that we're going to see this at some point and those 4 people are going to retire. Just, life changes, you get another job, something happens, and they decide not to be a volunteer anymore. And if that happens, we're going to be hurting for people to respond at any time, because not everyone is of the mindset that when you get up at 3 a.m. to go to a medical call. It's because they have to get up at 6 a.m. to go to work. I understand that. So with that in mind, I just want to make you aware of some things. And then going forward, we're going to have to make some changes and explore some different options with how we deal with the increased calls. We've done some of those things here recently, and it has worked. Just in terms of the frequent flyers, we have a lot of the repeat customers, and for different reasons, why they call frequently, and we've kind of stopped some of those. However, it's just the trend is just upward, and it's not just us. Speaking with other departments in the county, they're all experiencing the increased calls, and it's a nationwide trend. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions that you folks have and go from there.
All right. Thank you, Chief Lemus. Council? Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
There's pop-up and presentations, right? Public comment, correct?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Mr. Radford, because public comment follows right
Yeah.
now, and
Yes. Correct. Yeah, when public comment comes up. Well, I haven't called for public comment yet, Mr. Radford. When I do, you can come on down. I just have a quick question for the chief, and if it's okay.
Absolutely.
So with your charts and the medical, what's going to be the solution that you see that we are as a council or as city and your department moving forward to in the years to come or months to come even to solve the problem?
if you don't mind, Mr.
want me
Lemos,
to wait?
before you chime in on
Oh.
that, if I can just have a moment to
Okay.
try to answer that, is that ultimately.
You want to go before
Yeah,
if you answer me, Mr. Lever's to go.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. So ultimately, we had a really fruitful conversation today with the Finance Committee. We're working with a couple gentlemen that are in this room that we brought on contract to help kind of engage this process with Chief Lemos, Phil Anzo, and Jay Perkins that are in the space. We're meeting on a very regular basis to discuss what solutions may look like, but I think that what we're very cognizant about at this moment is kind of what we're going to be discussing later tonight, is that cost of living has increased for people, and we need to find multiple solutions to this problem as kind of an a la carte for the city council and for the public to weigh in on what they think is an appropriate solution, rather than us just possibly bringing, the need for more revenue or a very expensive solution. So I would hate to give you any solution currently at the moment, because technically we're still fleshing through a multitude of possibilities. So that's my take.
Okay, so more to come is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
then we'll wait for some more developments coming out of the advice of their committee, and when Mr. Ledbetter has some more information for us. So I'll let you off the hook.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks, Chief. All right. Okay. Now we'll move on to item number 6. This is public comments. Public participation is welcomed and invited at all city council meetings. This time is set aside for residents to address the city council on matters listed on the consent agenda, as well as other items not included on the regular agenda. If your comments concern an item noted on the regular agenda, please address the council when that item is open for public comment. The city requests that persons addressing the city council refrain from making personal, slanderous, profane, and disruptive remarks. Council members, when recognized by the mayor, may ask clarifying questions of the presenter, but no action may be taken by the city council during public comment section of the meeting. Under the Brown Act, the city council is prohibited from discussing or taking action on any item not listed in posted agenda. This time is set aside for residents to address the city council on all matters listed on the consent agenda, as well as other items not included on the agenda. If your comments concern an item listed under the public hearing or new business section of agenda, please address the council when that item is open for public comment. Please speak into the microphone from the podium. The podium electronically adjusts up and down to accommodate the speaker. Please state your name for the record prior to providing your comments. Please address the city council as a whole. If you have documents to present, please provide a minimum of 7 copies. These become public record. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Since council is unable to take action on issues not on the agenda, your matter may be referred to staff for follow-up or placed on a future agenda. The public comment period is not intended for a question and answer period or conversations with the council or city staff. Public comment.
Glenn White, City of Yreka. This is your bi-monthly park report. Yreka Creek at the Greenway Visitor Center looks pretty good, actually. Trash is scattered on the trail. There are a couple of illegal camps still behind the block wall and behind the building, and the graffiti is still on the bridge. The Greenway today found 8 illegal camps, open fire pits, sewage, illegal dumps in the creek, stream alteration going on. I know you probably have a permit for that from the state of California. You're right. Both of those are, you do have some violations of Clean Water Act going on there, and you definitely have Endangered Species Act violations because of the illegal dumping directly into that creek. Greenhorn Park, we found an additional illegal camper in there this morning. Elliot did a good job of identifying it, probably get rid of it. Blacksmith shop still needs repairs. Biomass removal, tearing down the old dead trees, looks pretty good. There's some smoke going on because they're doing some burning up there, but it doesn't look too bad. On the way back down, I had to walk from the road, which I usually don't take, behind College of the Siskiyous. And I was appalled by what I saw. Absolutely appalled. Never in my life would I ever assume that much filth and garbage and infectious waste and hazardous materials and trash dumps and open cesspools would ever be allowed to congregate in this city. It needs to be cleaned up. You failed to do that in the past, caused our beloved College of the Siskiyous extension program to cease to exist. The employees don't even want to go there anymore because they are afraid to go to that campus. I suggest the city council gets up tomorrow morning and takes a hike up that road to see what is actually going on up there. It must be cleaned up. Right now in California, hepatitis C, hepatitis A, tuberculosis, typhus, cholera, typhoid fever, bacterial meningitis are all present in these kind of situations. There's a reason why, as society, we have rules about cleanliness. You must take action on that area next to the college. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Steve Radford, 409 Evergreen. Um, I had a question for the chief on his graph on from 1990 to 2022. I can turn it into a statement now. The chief doesn't, he's not gonna, he didn't give any indication one side or the other that he agrees with me, so I'm not gonna bring the chief into it. This is my opinion myself. But it's pretty obvious, and based on what the last speaker was just saying, that the country's going to pot. Or this other drug that they're talking about, the one that's killing everybody. But obviously, from 1990, when we used to have a lot of pride in our community and self-pride, self-individual pride, and that ran through our families and into the community, there was a lot of volunteers. Dwayne, you know the city better than a lot of people. You've been here all your life and generations. That's really something to be proud of. Very proud of. I respect this country, this county for that reason. This is the heart and soul of America, as far as I'm concerned. This is what built America. We don't have that anymore. We've lost it. And that's due to the welfare system. The whole individual thinking has gone down to they will do it. I don't have to worry about it. And it used to be that I will take care of mine, you take care of yours, together we will do this together. And that's the way the country was built. Our forefathers, 13 of them, a small colony fought against the British government, the British monarchy, to fight for our freedom. And that's what we have to do here today, because we're right up against this communism, is in our nose, in our face. And it's really obvious what he was just showing right there. Those graphs just showed it exactly how the welfare system has taken the independence of the country down, and the welfare system and the consciousness of the country has gone to here. We don't have volunteers. We don't have self-pride. We don't have city dignity anymore. The thing up there on the hill is just outrageous. Okay. Getting back to this water thing that you guys want to raise the water rates, if
That
you
will be on
want,
that's the agenda item. You'll have to come up for public comment when that item is discussed.
oh, I'd be glad to. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thank you, Mr. Radford. We're not having a public hearing.
Still have to, yeah.
You got me. My name's Kyle Mikolajczyk. I've been in Yreka
Hi.
for 15 years now. I think we all know that the Chiefs problem would be pretty easy to fix if you got rid of the homeless hill, right? Medicals are going up. Us being a first responder, I don't want to go do medicals. No does anybody else. So that's why they're losing volunteers. It'd be pretty easy just to show some data with the amount of people in the camp and the amount of medicals. So I just think, solving that whole problem would be as easy as getting rid of that hill behind COS. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is Olivia Denman. On the water rationing thing, I was never notified about that. My sister sent me a bunch of stuff off of Facebook, which I do not have. I don't think that's a good way for the city to go about notifying people, so I think you guys should figure out how to notify everybody when something's going on. Phone call, anything, not Facebook.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, I will close public comment and move to item number 7. This is consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and non-controversial and will be enacted by one motion unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. A, approval ratification of payments issued from November 13th, 2023 through November 22nd, 2023. Approval of minutes of the regular meeting held November 21st, 2023. Resolution 2023-24 approving the 2024 meeting calendar for the regular city council meetings. D, approve the transportation claims for the local transportation fund for the fiscal year 2023-2024 and also authorize the mayor to sign the claims on behalf of the city. E, waive full text readings of all ordinances on the agenda. Ordinances shall be introduced and adopted by title only. The recommended city council action before you is the motion to adopt the consent agenda of the city council of the city of Yreka as presented. What are the wishes of the council? Councilman McCoy?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilman McCoy
I'll second it.
and a second from Councilman Kaeg. Want to go roll call? Councilman Kaeg?
Aye.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
And I will be a yes. So the motion passes 5-0 for the consent agenda. Okay, now item number 8, this is old business. This is our finance director will be joining us up to the podium. This is the agenda title. This is second reading of ordinance number 876 regarding proposed water and water waste utility rate increase. This is second reading of the ordinance number 876, an official ordinance of the city council of the city of Yreka, California, determining that there was no majority protest of the proposed water and wastewater rate increase, adopting updated water and wastewater service rates and superseding the existing rates established by resolution number 2018-2027, finding the ordinance exempt from CEQA. Good evening, Ms. Aldridge.
Good evening, council. Emily Aldrich, Finance Director for the city of Yreka. Before you today is the second reading of ordinance regarding proposed water and wastewater utility rate increase. At the November 21st, 2023 city council meeting, the city conducted a public hearing to hear and count protests from property owners and ratepayers on proposed rates recommended in the city of Yreka's water and wastewater utility rate study conducted by Pace Engineering. The hearing was conducted consistent with resolution 2023-46. General guidelines for the submission and tabulation of protests in connection with rate hearing conducted pursuant to Article 13D, Section 6 of the California Constitution, adopted October 3rd, 2023. After tabulating protests in connection with the rate hearing and not having received a majority of protests, the city clerk determined no majority protest existed. The city council introduced ordinance 876 and passed the motion for a second reading. This evening, the council will hear the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 876. And that's what we're here for today. Are there any questions regarding the second reading?
All right. We'll go to council for questions and then we'll go to public comment. Questions from the council or comments? Councilman Baker?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Aldrich, I am of the understanding that the funds that are collected for the water rates and wastewater, that those funds can't be used for any other purposes other than to support those programs. Is that a fair statement to make?
That is absolutely correct. These funds can only be used for those activities.
So in that budget itself, would it be appropriate to include equipment that's used to support that program, like vehicles, other equipment?
That is correct. The rate study includes the needs of the department. Water, we'll just stay or talk about water, so it's not confusing. Water has needs of, they need trucks to get out to Fall Creek. They need trucks to drive and replace your meter. So we look at the age of our fleets and what the necessary needs are going to be over the next 5 years, and we build that into that budget. And we even it across all 5 years so that 1 year isn't really super heavy in equipment, that it's spread out over the 5 years, which evens out that cost increase. If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then I have a question for Mr. Jared. Can you again just give us just a little bit of guidance on passing this ordinance? And is this ordinance as it's written, this is the second reading, is this like an absolute done deal, or can we make changes at this point in time?
Yeah, so if you were to make changes to any ordinance on second reading, that then becomes a first reading of the ordinance, and it then again would need to come back for a second reading.
Thank you.
It would need to come back at a regularly scheduled council meeting, at least 5 days away from today.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Baker.
Whoever wants to go. I don't know if you have any questions.
Councilman Cake.
Question number one, on the current, water rates, we have written down our single family consumption rates, 2.26, that's per, 1,000 gallons. And then the proposed one will be 2.48, correct? Now that 2.28 is at this point is with our 4% annual increase, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just want people to be aware of that too, that's already a 4% increase. So the 9.5 on this one, or 9.6, 9.5 on this one, is the 2.48, that's what that reflects then.
Correct.
So in actuality, if we were to keep our 4%, that would, the next fiscal year would be a higher rate anyways.
Correct.
So that's added into that. Now it's the current one we're at is at 23, 24, then it'd be 24, 25. So at 2.26 at 4%. The next one would be another a few more cents added on to that, another like I came up with on 5 cents or something like that added on to it.
I wouldn't dare to do math in my head right here.
Without a calculator. Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, with on the spot like that. So no matter what, every year if we were to keep what we've already put in place from 2018, which the count, I don't think any of this count, were you on 2018? So I guess you guys were on, no? I know I was, so we voted on that with a 4% at that point in time, because before that, nobody else was trying to do any increases or whatsoever, so they weren't, acknowledging that we need to prepare for the future whatsoever, and we're getting behind on what we need to get done. So I think, looking at, this percentage rates and stuff like that, I think a lot of it's a shell shock for a lot of people when we start looking at that, because it is a shell shock. And a lot of people look at it going, wow, 9.6, 9.5, 9.6%. But in actuality, we're looking at, and this is where unfortunately, I confused everybody the last time I was trying to make a point that we're raising it technically from what we already currently have. We're only raising it another 5.5% from what we currently have above the 4%. Is this correct?
I'm following your logic, but it is very confusing, correct?
Yeah, it is confusing. I guess that's my main thing is I think the public is confused on a lot of aspects. And that's tough for them to swallow under that circumstances, because I don't think, and there's nothing, the point I'm trying to get across is I don't think that we've had a proper opportunity to clarify a lot of these issues with the public, and I think that needs to be clarified. I really do, because I think there's a lot of confusion. I think there's, over the years, that it does add up to a lot of money. And I know a lot of people a lot of the council have been getting the same emails, the same text messages, the same phone calls and everything else that I have, that there's a lot of added expenses, especially when you start looking at 27, 28 years down the road. Year 2027, 28, I should clarify that too. Not 27 years down the road, 2027, 2028. So I think there's a lot of confusion on percentage wise and how much that increases and how much it's going to increase their bill in conjunction to what it is now. Yeah, it looks like a lot more money, but I think we haven't properly done our due diligence on informing the public properly on what this is. And I at this point, honestly, I think we need to take a step back and reevaluate this. Like I said, when this took place back in 2018, I was a part of it. I think it was imposed at a 7% increase at that point in time, somewhere around there. I think one of my constituents was telling me that it was about 7%. I knew it was a lot more than 4%. And I actually was part of the council that encouraged the rest of the council to take a step back and decrease that. Right, wrong, or indifferent is what we ended up doing. So we had a lot of members of the public at that point in time said the same thing. We don't want any increases in our in the fees. We don't want any increases on this or that. But we knew that we had to make some type of increases at that point. It need to be done. You can't expect to be paying the same thing and expect a better product at the end result. So I think where I'm coming from is I think we need to do some more public acknowledgement on what needs to be done and how this needs to be handled, and maybe look at that percentage rate. And I know I'm not going to be the most popular in the room by one part and by another part. I know my fellow councilmen are probably going to be mad at me, but I think we need to take a step back and reevaluate this. Just from the amount of public input that I've had, I really think that this needs to take a step back and reevaluate the percentage wise. So the other thing I'm looking at too, and this is a perfect opportunity that we had just recently had, like I said, presentation from our fire chief, and soon we're going to have to be making some type of advancements in our fire safety situation. And if you were to go right now in front of the voters and say that we need some more money somehow, some way, after we go through and pass this for our water rates and sewer rates going up, that it would fail, plain and simple. I guarantee you the public would knock it down because we just raised our rates on this avenue. So I don't know if the rest of the council has looked at that. I just did a deep look at that today and come to the evaluation that if we were to do any type of tax purpose, any type of anything to help out our fire department, it would probably fail right now because of this water rates and sewer rates increase. So that's my opinion. I don't really want to go into any more detail. I think I've made a real good statement, and I'm not going to be the most popular in the room, but I am making that statement right now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Kate. Councilman McCoy.
Well, I can tell you that my personal opinion is I don't like paying $5.50 for gas. Unfortunately, the gas companies, they're not real worried about me. They're not worried about you either. I don't like paying $5 a gallon for water, but we all go buy a bottle of water, and it's, if you do the math, it's between $4.50 and $6 a gallon, depending on what you're buying in the bottle. And we do it willingly. We spend $6. I see people when I'm driving through Starbucks paying $6.50 for a cup of coffee. You know, my dad, when the coffee went from a nickel to a dime, he was apoplectic to go to Denny's and have to pay a dime for a cup of coffee. You know, if we want the community, if we want the water and we want the effluent, which I think most people don't want to deal with their own sewage. And I don't think they want to deal with having to boil water. If we want it, we are going to have to pay for it. And the cost is going up. I mean, we've seen inflation of 7% in the first year of the current president. We saw inflation of about 3.5% in the last year of the last president. This president and the past president decided they were going to give money away. And when you print money and give it away, that creates inflation, and that hurts every one of us. We're not doing this because we're looking at the inflated costs of running a water plant and running a sewer plant. And I'll guarantee you that if we don't have the money to run them, or I mean, if I were to talk to any of you about this weekend having the failure of a connector on the pipe from coming down from Fall Creek, none of us were happy about that. Getting the messages on my phone, because I'm signed up for the emergency message system, and getting it on Facebook. I was not happy about it, but we cut back and we changed our consumption habits until they could get it fixed. So, you know, is this ideal? No. Did we go for the highest amount of a raise that we were advised to do? Absolutely not. We did not. We brought it down. We brought it down 30% because we were thinking about the fact that although we're going to need more, you know, everything costs more, but we couldn't do that. We didn't feel it was right. And again, the finance committee brought this to the council, and the finance committee supported it. That's why we brought it to you. We would not have brought it to you if we didn't support it. The hard thing that we have to do as a council is we have to put our personal feelings aside. I don't like paying $5 a gallon for gas. I don't like paying $90 an hour to have somebody work on my car. I don't like paying, you know, $7 now for heavy whipping cream, for a quart of heavy whipping cream at Walmart, $7. I don't like it at all. But this isn't about me. This is about, are we going to leave this city as far as the infrastructure goes? Are we going to let it go to heck? Or are we going to leave it so that it's in good shape, so that when our kids and grandkids, should they want to come back here, should we get some jobs back here, if they want to stay here, are we leaving it in good shape for them? And we can choose to say, blow it off, don't worry about it, let it go. It's only sewer. They can run it back out in the ponds again. We could smell it like we did when I first moved here. And we can listen to those complaints then. But I mean, it's a necessary evil. We don't have to agree with it. But the 5 of us, are charged with doing what is best for this community. And if we don't, shame on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McCoy. Councilman Davis.
I have to say that I'm not in favor of the raise that we have proposed, and you know that. However, I just want to say a couple of things. This last incident we had with the Fall Creek water, where the delivery system blew up on us, and we were talking about going to the north well and boiling water, that showed that we had some needs, some serious needs. You know, once you get that brackish water into your system, it doesn't come out right now. It takes a long time to come out. I mean, you can take a shower in that stuff, but if you want to have a cup of coffee, you got to boil your water first, you know. So What I'm saying is there is a need for a price or a rate increase. I'm not so sure that 9.5% is necessary. I think probably a little less would be sufficient and maybe easier on the public. I know I figured my bill out, and like I didn't figure like Mr. McCoy, I figured how it would affect me, and it affected me. So that's not the main reason, but it also affected several people that contacted me that are like me, 70 or something, and living on a fixed income. I'm not living on a fixed income, but because my wife works as well as my income. But some people don't have that luxury. So, you know, I listen to that because I am there. And a lot of the things they said to me made a lot of sense. I brought a proposal, and it's a little different. It's not much less, but it is less. It's a 6.5% shot rather than a 9.5%. And I have it written up here. There's another thing that's involved. In Yreka, the meter sizes are in the bottom end are 5/8, 3/4, and 1 inch. We have a lot of those meter sizes in the homes around here. And I know the city has been working hard through the public works to get the residential meters to 5/8. Matter of fact, the way they've changed a few that I was involved in, and they went from like 3/4 down to 5/8. And I proposed that we charge the same meter rate for all three of those. The same for the 5/8, same for the 3/4, and the same for the 1 inch. It's just a proposal, mind you, but I put it in there like that. Just, and I'd like to pass that out to you. Do you mind, Mr. Mayor? Just for something for you to look at, to see if you would consider.
Comment
Go
on
ahead, go ahead.
I make a comment that Mr. Davis hands that out to the council and reads that proposal out loud. To be quite honest with you, Mr. Davis, was going to be my proposal tonight too, is 6.5%. So I'm very open to listen to what your proposal is.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Cake.
Before I go to that, I'm gonna go to our legal counsel for clarification. If you don't mind, Mr. Jared. Do we go for public comment first and then go for the vote if it fails, and then go for the proposal or negotiation to bring it back, or is it up to my discretion to allow Mr. Davis to move forward with his proposal?
Mr. Mayor, it would be a moot point if this passes.
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking for clarification from Mr. Jared, so if he could answer that question first.
Well, there needs to be public comment, and I think that it would be the public would be best served to understand what this proposal is, and be able to comment on it in full, rather than having them comment, then you discuss an alternative that they haven't had a chance to weigh in on.
Okay.
But to remind, it sounds like that type of proposal would be a substantive change that, depending on how much that changes text in the ordinance itself, would mean tonight would be first reading. If it changes it too much, then we end up having to recirculate the ordinance, and the next meeting would actually be first reading, and then have to come back for a second subsequent second reading.
Okay, thank you.
I believe it will change. I conferred with Mr. Ledbetter earlier today, and he was pretty sure that it would change the ordinance.
Okay. Councilman McCoy?
This is directed towards you, our city attorney. Wouldn't Rosenberg's or Roberts call for us to do public hearing, a vote, and then bring back anything that we might want to change if that vote were to fail? Or do we just automatically abort the vote and take that away from the council. Because as I would understand, Roberts, we would go through to the end, and then that would come out of, that would be a logical outcome of Councilman Davis's proposal would be a logical outcome.
Maybe I'm not understanding the proposal. My understanding was to discuss this further, not to take a vote right now. Correct. But to discuss it further, allow the public to comment.
Okay.
And then proceed with any action on bringing it back to the council to take action.
Okay, so then let me rephrase it. For lack of muddying the water, the finance committee has made a proposal. We brought what we felt as a committee of 7, or I think it's 5 or 7, was something that we could live with, something that served the needs as far as servicing things that happen through water and effluent, drinking water and effluent, and we brought that here. Now, don't we need to see that through? Then once we're done with public comment, then at that point in time, so we don't muddy the water, we know what we've been discussing. These people are here because they know what we've been discussing, and we know that they're either for or against adamantly. Doesn't it make sense to finish what we're doing here before we muddy the water and bring in a different proposal?
You could do it either way. What I'm hearing though is that there's more than one council member interested in changing the text of the current ordinance.
So what does Rosenberg say or Roberts say about that? Then
This really,
that's what I'd like to know.
I don't know that it's a Rosenberg or Roberts issue. It has to go to really the Brown Act in many ways of taking an item and dealing with it, particularly an ordinance on second reading, what you're going to deal with it. If the council can't come up with a majority vote on that, then that ordinance would fail.
Come up with a majority vote on the original ordinance.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not unlawful, or would not be improper for the council to consider in the discussion of that, what you're calling the original ordinance, in that an alternative motion, essentially. So that does come to Roberts or Rosenberg's in this case, of in which order do you take the alternative motion? And you take it in the order it's presented. And so here, if we've got the first ordinance on, as an alternative to that, a council member could propose an alternative ordinance, meaning a change to the current one. I think that what works into the mix is simply voting down that ordinance tonight, as I think the way you're suggesting.
No, I'm not suggesting.
Well, I'm not suggesting that you voting down. I'm suggesting that what I'm understanding is you want to take the ordinance that's on the agenda right now and take that through, and then what happens?
Because I can't see bringing another ordinance in when we're discussing an ordinance. I think we're muddying the water. We're not doing what we need to do. If we need to vote it down, we vote it down, then we bring it in, and I'm fine with that. But I am concerned about the lack of the lack of decorum in approaching this again through Roberts or Rosenberg's, whichever we want to choose to adhere to, because it doesn't preclude us from doing it every single there's many times when we could have done this in other meetings and we haven't. So it just, I'm just trying to, I don't want to set a precedent where we're just we've been working on this now for I don't know how long, Councilwoman Baker, quite a while.
Several months.
Several months. I think we may have started on it in September. And we start talking about it at some of our meetings.
So through the clarifying question process in this discussion, it's emerged that there is a proposal for a change to the current text of the ordinance. I think it would be appropriate to understand what that text change recommendation is, to allow the public to comment on that. And then after public comment has been taken, the council then consider the original ordinance, the proposed amendment to the ordinance, in whichever order, but you take it in that way.
So then do we need to go ahead and have public comment on that ordinance? A second public
That
comment,
ordinance.
we were, I mean, on that proposal, a second public comment on this proposal, and then talk about it. So we have two different public comments.
I just wanted to chime in, Mr. McCoy, that ultimately I think what Mr. Jarrett is saving you from is exactly that. And so if you were to just have public comment now and then one of you introduced an alternative motion, it technically would require another round of public comment.
Yeah.
And so in this instance, Rosenberg's or Roberts would come into play if you had two motions on the floor. And so if we hear what the council members that have an alternative idea now, that safeguards that we have public comment and everybody is aware of all the current options that the council's considering. And then ultimately it's up to you guys to determine who's going to make a motion. If you have two motions on the floor, I think then Mr. Jared comes in with that kind of legal guidance as to what you're questioning at the
Yeah.
moment. I'm not sure. if that
Still,
makes
still
sense.
concerns me because this is something that could happen easily 12 times a year in our 24 meetings. This is something, if we go ahead and do this, this is something that could happen 12 times a year, that this comes to us. And then at that point in time,
Order, please. No speaking from the podium, please, or the audience, please. Thank you.
we're here to do that. This is a business meeting. That's what this is.
Order, please. Do not speak
Yeah,
from the
let's make it-
audience. I just want to make a clarification real quick. So it's never been, so since we're go to public, since they are here to pie majority and opposing the rate increase, and we have the discussion. I agree with Mr. Jared that since we are discussing it, Councilman Davis did propose an alternative. If I do not let him read that or pass it out to us and I close it here and he doesn't, we move on, then he reads it, then I go back to public comment because he's going to provide new information that the public isn't going to hear. So they need to hear what he has to say now because he did bring that up.
I understand. Isn't that why we're here, to listen? And does it hurt us to listen to two proposals? Does it hurt us to hear public talk to us twice? That's what I'm saying. We're here to listen. I mean, we hear people out here, cheering right now and yelling at us. They want to talk, but no, we're going to suppress them. We're going to put them both out. We're only going to let them talk once. So, I mean, that's if we want to suppress the public, then we go ahead and suppress them.
I don't see it that way, but
Well,
That's my opinion.
that is the way I
Okay.
do see it, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Respectfully.
Mr. Mayor? Can I just make just one little comment for you, please?
Okay.
Yes. Would you bring it, ask the council if they want to do a majority on the council, if they want to hear Mr. Davis's proposal first?
Okay.
Because I think that's what it comes down to, because if, as the council, if we say no, that we don't want to hear Mr. Davis's proposal, then it's basically shot down. We go back to whatever the original business was.
Is it a 4-1 or a 3-2?
That's, that I don't. know.
That we need that.
Simple. Simple.
It is, even though it's not in the initial, in the vote at the end.
It's just to listen to his proposal, yeah.
It's a simple majority for the ordinance.
okay. Except Mr. Davis did have the floor at the time. He did make that. I was going to ask them the question, then we got on. Then I asked my question, but anyways. I'll go to Councilman Baker.
I
What
would
is your,
like to hear Mr. Davis's proposal
okay,
now.
Councilman Kay,
I would like to hear his proposal also.
Councilman McCoy?
I would like to hear his proposal after we finish with the current proposal that's on the floor.
Okay, that's not what we're talking about. And I will say, we'll
Then
have,
I will say, no, I don't want to hear his proposal then.
okay. I will say, Mr. McCoy to move forward, or I'm sorry, Councilman Davis to move forward with his proposal, hand out what you have, if it's available to us, and then read it
do.
so the public,
Absolutely.
so the public can hear what it is.
Do we have any for the public as well?
Yes, please.
I would, that's why I was asking
Yeah,
if you have a reading of his proposal.
What's that?
That's why I was asking if you'd have a reading of his proposal, because he doesn't have enough copies for probably the
Yeah.
public. He's gonna have to read it though also. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm going to remind the audience that we are in session, so please silence. Hello? We are in session, so no conversations in the audience, please. Okay, so Mr. Davis. I'm gonna go ahead and read your proposal that you handed to us so the audience and the public can hear what you are proposing.
I'm on the floor.
You're on the floor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically what I have is adjusted in the back of the packet. There's a chart on page 44. I just adjusted that. I did not figure about the carryover or the runoff. The current consumption rate per 1,000 is
Sorry, Mr. Davis,
$2.26.
can I interrupt for 1 second or just stop you 1 second? Retta, is there any way we can bring that chart up on the screen so the public can see? The original one that's on the agenda? Or no? Well, the one that's, no, the page 44 that's on the agenda, the chart. So the audience can have something to compare. Thank you, I'm sorry. Hold 1 second, Mr. Davis, sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. Do you want to start over? Now that's up for them to see. We can blow it up anymore. Maybe.
Now, what do you want me to do here?
Go ahead and start over.
So for clarification on the record, this is what's shown on the screen there, and I don't recommend that we do any other enlarging, Retta. It gets really complicated if you start that. But this is in the agenda packet on
Yes.
page 44 or 46 of the agenda packet. It is Exhibit A to the staff report on this item. And this is the City of Yreka utility rates, recommended water rates, dealing with consumption charges and monthly service charges.
Thank you. I just wanted, because he was referring it. I just wanted to say what we're looking at. So it's up there. All right, go ahead. You start over. Sorry about that.
Anyway, the current consumption rate per 1,000 gallons is $2.26. With a 6.5% increase, which is actually 2% above CPI or CCI, it's $2.41 for the next year, $2.56 for 24-25, $2.73 for 25-26, $2.91 for 26-27, and $3.10 for 27-28, and that's per 1,000 gallons. And you can compare it with what's on that chart. It's a little bit less. And then the current meter charges, if you'll notice, the current meter charges run for a 5/8 is 38.45, and for a 3/4 it's 49.99, and for 1 inch it's 57.68. And after that, it gets to be kind of big. And I probably don't need to read that, I don't feel. The ones that mostly affects the households are the first three. And my proposal is to make those all the same. At 23-24, they're $40.95 per month. 24-25, it's 43.61. 25-26 is 46.45. And 26-27 is 49.46. And 27-28 is 52.43 per meter. And I think, no, that's not it. And the other ones, they just go up by 6.5% each year. Up to 27-28 for an 8-inch meter is $1,800.43 or $1,843.79. The second page talks about the wastewater. That is like I left. Oh no, it's there. These are pretty much the same for single family. The low income single family is $2 less. The multifamily is the same rate as all the rest per unit, and non-residential per HA is the same. So it's the current is 51.10 and 49.10 for low income. That rate would, the flat rate per unit that at 6.3% is 54.32 for 23-24, 57.79, 24-25, and 61.37 for 25-26. And in 26-27 it's 65.25, and 27-28 it's 69.36, and the low income again is $2 less on each. And that's kind of set by city ordinance already, I think. So that wasn't messed with.
I have a question.
If you would give it to me, I'd appreciate it.
It's actually for Mr. Keg. I'm confused by your math. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm wondering if you may be able to show me what you're talking about, because the increases here that Mr. Davis has pointed out, they're 6.5%, and the ones on the paper are either 9.5% or 9.6%. They're not 5%. I don't understand, and maybe it would be helpful because you seem adamant that that is a confusing factor to the public, but I am very confused as to what you're talking about. And so if you can walk me through it, it'd be very helpful for me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the question's for you. You made a statement that you feel that we haven't been upfront with the public with the messaging because of some weird 4% and 5.5%, but I don't understand that logic. It is in this instance, it's a 6.5% increase year over year. And in the instance on the paper, it's either a 9.5% increase or a 9.6% increase. It's not a 5.5 plus 4% like that. I don't understand that. And I guess in order for me to better understand how to communicate with you, I'm wondering if you can show me your math or explain it to me.
No, I have no problem with that. No.
And before we go to answer his question, I just want to make sure that Councilman Davis is finished with his time and propose and explain the proposal. Are you okay?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Now we'll go to Councilman Keg. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councilman Davis.
And I'm sorry for the confusion. Currently, we're at 4% increase no matter what, correct?
No, that's not correct. That's what I'm confused by.
That's what we voted on before, whereas currently every year it goes up 4%.
Until now, right? And now we're gonna go up a 9.5%. The 4%
Correct.
goes, so
If
it,
we were to continue that 4% with, that's what, if we were to just say, hey, 4% is what we've been doing for the last 4 years, since 2018, 4%. Then that 9.5% would only be technically a 5.5% increase of what we were normally doing anyways. What I'm getting at, that's the difference in all of this. That's all I'm saying. That is the 6.5% is 6.5%. We're doing 4% currently every year right now, correct?
we are doing 4%, but that ends,
I
right?
know
Like it
ends.
doesn't
That's
continue on.
exactly.
Yeah.
That is correct. I realize that ends. That's why we're here, is because we're trying to clarify that. And we gotta either do 4%, we gotta do 6%, 6.5%, 9.5%. We gotta do something. We can't go back to what it originally was, because that's what regressing back to what the problem was before 2018. And I think, like I said, I don't want to confuse the public, but I think there is some confusion to the public that they don't realize that we've been doing a 4% increase every year anyways. Of every year, what you see from right now, $2.26 on the current. And then if we didn't do that 4%, then it would go back to what it previously was. So we need to every year make some type of increase. Cost of living goes up, so we have to, add that into the factor. So that's what I'm saying. I realize it ended 4%, and that ended, but what we've been doing the past 4 years, 5 years, whatever it has been now, has been every year a 4% increase. That is correct.
That is correct, but that ends. And so I think it's more confusing with what you're stating, and the 4% ends, right? And just as though you guys doubled rates, I think 20 years ago, they're not in perpetuity. We're not still doubling rates, right? So the 4% is really off the table. The increase that Mr. Davis is suggesting is literally a 6.5% increase year over year. I think it's very confusing to the public to really maintain the 4% and then add a 5.5%.
No, I'm not proposing that. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was just wanting to make sure that we're all talking the same language, I
No,
guess.
I'm sorry for the confusion. I just wanted it clarified that we've been doing a 4% every year. So the 9.5%, if we were to go that, or the 6.5% is just added above that 4% that we would be doing anyways. We've already been doing that 4% anyways, plain and simple. So maybe I guess the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of members of the public do not realize that we've been doing that 4% in the last 4 or 5 years anyways. So they didn't understand that concept of it. Maybe I'm beating a dead horse by showing it, but I also like math, and Mr. Davis is very good at math. So I love math too, in that aspect that math is very clear on everything. So I was just clarifying the difference between the 4% that we're already doing and what the proposals is. That's it. 6.5% is total 6.5%. If you want to break it down, it's only 2.5% more than what we're doing in the previous years. A percent increase. That's what it amounts to. That's the reason why I was saying the 6.5% also. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna have a question for you anyway, so come on up.
I will caution you, changing all of those three to the same rate, those 3 different meter sizes will actually lower your overall revenue and therefore cause the next 5 years to have to be more of an increase to make up for those loss. So we got to keep in mind the number of meters. So that's what PACE does, is they take into account the number of current meters that are in, the number that are going to need to be replaced. So that's all calculated in PACE's engineering study, just as a caution.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to take a turn here and ask you if that proposal in the case of the report, if what is being proposed by Mr. Hague or Mr. Davis, if that's going to create a shortfall in any way for us.
It will completely change our structure of how we bring in revenues.
Okay. And how, in your eyes, or the finance committee who sat and even went lower than the recommended rate increase, how detrimental will that be for the city in the future years to come, the next 5 years?
I couldn't give you specific numbers. That's a lot of math.
But pretty detrimental, probably like a shortfall.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, just I want to chime in here, so
That's
we
all I
can
have for
kind
you.
of keep
Thank you.
keep the meeting going. Ultimately, is that let's just say that you guys decide not to move forward this evening with things currently. There's such a level of change here that ultimately the suggestion would be, rather than just going and arbitrarily adopting something without maybe going back to the engineering team and all of the original document that Pace Engineer has, it's a work plan.
Mhm.
That's really important. It has purchasing capital equipment, essentially, making capital improvement, and not all those things can get done if we're going to decrease. And so we would just want to make sure that we're bringing back the proper work plan that matched exactly what the intention of the council was, so that then we knew what we were doing moving forward as to what projects we're going to do, whether that be the Greenhorn project or a multitude of other projects that are already built into the rate increases. And so I would just advocate this is on the table, and that ultimately it's such a major change that we don't know the financial ramifications, that through this process, if you guys do decide tonight to not to move forward with the second reading, give us the opportunity to go back to Pace with this information, give us direction on marching orders, and then we would come back to make sure that all of the financials that Ms. Aldrich is discussing are kind of taken care of.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Okay. Sure. Mr. McCoy, or Councilman McCoy.
Jared? If we go ahead to, and we take this back, is it considered a substitute motion or a friendly amendment, or what's it considered?
Taking,
Taking this proposal rather.
yeah, in hearing the proposal and looking at these numbers, it looks like a pretty significant change here. And I think they would be appropriate to actually, Mr. Ledbetter and Ms. Aldrich were asking to allow time to digest these numbers and give an analysis of what this means. So I think the way to approach this is not with a simple amended motion on an amended ordinance, substituting this for Exhibit A. And one of the other reasons, the way that the chart here is oriented is just the way the numbers are listed vertically versus horizontally. It's a difficult way of, no fault of anyone. I mean, the information is there. It just takes a little translation in order to follow it. So it's not as simple as substituting this for Exhibit A because of the orientation of.
My secretary was on strike that day.
I think this is where you're going with this, what to, as a substitute motion. I think that's leaning a little too far. And so going back to, I think, your discussion on how to deal with both of these things. If there is the difficulty is if you're going to vote on second reading tonight and that vote comes up short, then you have a problem of having concluded that item, a first and a motion, and then the second reading fails. There would be the argument to take it all the way back to the beginning and have to again go with the whole process.
And yet we are entertaining a major change to an article that we are voting on tonight and having public comment. So does it behoove us just to drop just to drop the original article from the agenda and then have, I mean, we can let the public have their comment, but then just drop it? Because I mean, right now, we're not talking about what we are going to have the citizens talk about. They're going to want to come and talk about they'll talk about this now, but they would be talking about the 9% rate increase, and that's what we would have been voting on. But it seems like it's a moot point at this point in time, since this has been introduced. And I'm not for or against. I'm just saying I'd like to do this fairly parliamentary, and I'd like to not, I'd like to get it done in a timely fashion, but I don't think that's gonna happen, and that's okay. Again, we're paid to be up here, so that's why we get paid the big bucks. But I'm asking for some kind of a clarification.
So when you say drop it tonight, or
The original resolution,
right, so I don't know what you mean by drop. What you mean by drop is
cut it off. We're done. Because we're negotiating about this right now. So this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the original.
So the way I'm seeing this going is it would be best to hear public comment on this, then table the matter to the next meeting. Be able then to have a staff analysis on the Davis proposal, and have it being very clearly agendized with two very clear documents of Exhibit E or Exhibit A to the ordinance. And in that way, you do have two very clear choices to go with. One would effectively be second reading on the one that is teed up for second reading tonight. The other would then be first reading on that other proposal. And that other proposal, as I'm seeing it, is nothing new other than not as great an increase. It's a reduction of 3% of what's being proposed.
Is there anything to preclude us then from actually from one of us, one of the five of us, well, it wouldn't be Drake, but it'd be one of the four of us to introduce a third proposal at the next meeting?
I think that starts to then continue to have these, depending on what the proposal is.
Wait a minute, you're telling us that we can't do it because we're gonna let one person do it, but we're not gonna let another four people do it? If they have an alternate, it might be lower, might be in between.
You absolutely can. It's completely in your purview to offer additional proposals. What I'm clarifying is, depending on what that proposal is, it could be of such a if it's just a typographic in nature, or if it's changing.
No, a new proposal
In a particular cell, saying, this, for the 2023 or 24-25 for the 5/8, and adding in a specific number. I think that's a very minor addition.
I'm talking about a new proposal, another proposal. I'm not talking about a typo. I'm not talking about changing one letter or one number. So we do have the ability to bring back a third proposal.
And if it were to go higher than what your current study shows, then you would be effectively needing to start the process altogether. If it's going below what your current study shows, then you're not harming the public anymore by rates, and therefore you're within what has been what the rate study and the hearing was about.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Jared, I'm on a recess for a minute too. I'm here in a minute, but I want to ask a quick question before I move on to that. We have citizens who came for the original, and I get, if this is Mr. Davis's right to bring a different proposal. But I think at the time the proposal should have came, or a suggestion that we started discussion, is before it became for the final reading, with no offense, because we spent all this time and now we're back to the drawing board of this back and forth now for 40 minutes with our citizens sitting in here, and it's not fair to them when they come to speak on our original agenda item. The time and place to not move this forward is a month ago or 2 months ago, saying, wait, hold up, but the council moved it forward to have the reading and consider the hike of 9.5%. So isn't it fair for me to go to public comment after the recess and move forward to the vote? If the vote fails, then we're going to have to go back to the table, either with the finance committee goes back to the table or go back to the chart.
What makes a, yeah, motion?
If you end up, if the motion on the second reading of the current ordinance fails,
Correct.
then you're
Mhm.
basically starting over.
Yes,
Um,
because this is gonna have to go
It's dead.
back anyways. We can't say tonight if there's major changes. So what I'm saying is open it back.
Let me
Okay,
be very precise on this. That ordinance is dead.
when it fails, yes, if it fails.
And then motion for reconsideration rules come in and things of that nature. And so that's why it was sounding like tabling the matter, hearing the public, but tabling the discussion on the two ordinances, or the current ordinance and the proposed change to the ordinance at a future meeting. But again, that could be a procedural motion of what to do, and if the votes are there to move forward tonight, then you move forward tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. McCoy.
So again, another procedural question. If the motion dies tonight, we take this back. If this becomes the motion, then we start all over again. So we go through the complaint process. We do all that again. So we've got, right, correct?
You mean the protest hearing? et
Yes,
cetera?
yeah.
I believe that would be correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to take a 10-minute recess. Thank you. Meeting adjourned for 10 minutes.
What's that, Lorenzo?
All right. We will re-adjourn and sorry, it was longer than 10 minutes. Okay. So now I will open up to public comment regarding the rate increase that's before you.
Lorenzo.
Item number 8. I'm sorry. Hold on one second, Lorenzo. So item 8, we're still on item 8, Lorenzo. The rate increase.
All right, Lorenzo Love, Yreka resident. Social Security cost of living increase for 2024 is only 3.2%. Your utility rate increase is 3 times the cost of living. 6.5 rate increase is still double the cost of living. In 5-year time, water and sewer costs will increase by over $800 per year. This will put the average utility bill at $2,365 a year. This punitive rate increase creates real harm to those who can afford it the least. And you continue the insulting lifeline rate of only $2 a month off. This disrespects every citizen on a fixed income. When you look at the budgeted and projected expenditures under inflation factors, you see nothing like the 9.5 utility rate increase. In fact, most are in line with the Social Security increase of 3.2%. The budget for water and sewer includes suspicious items like $750,000 in water for city hall upgrades and another $750,000 in wastewater for city hall upgrades. $1.5 million for plumbing, that's nonsense. If the city hall upgrade ever happens, it'll be paid for with a grant. You know that. I call fraud. There's $85,000 for a truck for Greenhorn Reservoir and $30,000 for a mower. Why isn't that in the parks budget? I call fraud. On the income side, you got $534,807 in development impact fees for fiscal year 21-22, yet you lowball that income estimate to only $7,500 a year under this plan. I call fraud. If you swallowed this PACE budget whole, there's something wrong. I hope you just didn't bother to read it.
because this is full of nonsense. We can no longer trust you to represent us. You're failing your citizens.
Thank you.
Jack Phillips, Mount Shasta. I love math too, you guys. First, I would like to thank Councilman Drake Davis for his no vote to increase sewer water and water rates. Second, I will request that the city council reduce their sewer and water connection capacity charges to $5,000 or less to allow affordable homes to be built. Please read my emails to understand why your connection capacity charges are a gross violation of California Government Code Section 66,013 of the Mitigation Fee Act. Proposition 218 is not the law to follow for sewer and water connection fees. Proposition 218, Article 13D, Section 1 states, nothing in this article or Article 13C shall be construed to B, affect existing laws relating to the imposition of fees or charges as a condition of property development. So don't follow Proposition 218 and then tell everyone that your sewer and water connection fees are assessments like Mount Shasta did. Very foolish. I sent you an email on the League of California Cities Proposition 218 implementation guide that clearly states that the city of Yreka has followed the wrong section of Proposition 218 when increasing sewer and water rates that pay for assessments imposed for capital cost and maintenance and operations expenses. The following is from the League of California Cities Proposition 218 implementation guide. Page 22 of Prop 218 guide states, quote, any assessment imposed to finance the capital cost or maintenance and operations expenses for sidewalks, streets, sewer, water, flood control, drainage system, or vector control is exempt from the procedures and approval process set forth in Section 4 in Article 13D until the assessment is increased. End of quote. Page 22 is quoting Section 5A of Proposition 218. Section 5A of Prop 218 clearly states that capital cost and maintenance and operations expenses for sewer and water are assessments and must adhere to Section 4 of Article 13D when increased. Section 6, property related fees and charges, doesn't even mention capital cost and maintenance and operations expenses for sewer and water utility systems. Section 5A states any assessment imposed exclusively to finance the capital cost or maintenance and operations expenses for sewer and water public facilities must follow the procedures and approval process set forth in Section 4 when increased. What more do you need to hear? 5A states any assessment imposed exclusively to finance the capital cost. That's what the city of Yreka is doing. The city is financing the capital cost for sewer and water public facilities. What more do you need to hear? Nowhere in Proposition 218 does it state that a fee is imposed or increased to pay for maintenance and operations expenses or for capital cost of sewer and water public facilities. Nowhere. All I want for Christmas is for the city of Yreka to read and follow Proposition 218 and impose legal sewer and water assessments for capital cost with a divided portion amount due and a duration of payments as stated in Section 4, procedures and requirements for all assessments. Please stop disconnecting the amount charged from the service provided. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn Wise, City of Yreka. Well done, Councilman Davis, on your proposal. After taking a look at the Pace Engineering Report, take a look at Table 1, the budgeted and projected expenditures. The inflation factors that Pace Engineering used were in the areas of 3%, 3.5%, 2%, 4%, 5% on a yearly basis on all areas within the water and sewer budgeted areas. As such, when you come up with a 9.6, that might be a little bit excessive. We understand that things cost money, but a 9%, 9.6, actually, if you work it out for 5 years, it comes to 63%. You divide that by 5 or 4, whatever, it's going to be about 12% a year because of compounding. I can explain it to you later on if you need to. By the way, I kept hearing a lot about kicking the can down the road. Back before you all were on the council, kicking the can down the road. So I went back and talked, I talked to a couple of people who might have been part of that kicking the can down the road. And they said they couldn't understand where that came from. Inflation rate, according to the U.S. Federal Reserve data for 2010 through 2013 was 1.9%. Pace Engineering's 2013 report for the city of Yreka recommended a 2%. That was well within the areas and confines of the average 1.9% inflation rate between those time limits. The inflation rate between 2013 and 2018 was 1%, according to the U.S. Federal Reserve. So once again, they weren't really kicking the can down the road. They were just following what the Pace Engineering Report said for them to do. Pace Engineering Report says here, go 3, 4, 5%. So 6%, 6.5% is well within the confines of what Pace said, to include making sure that everything's paid for, and just in case you don't get a couple of your grants. That's the reason they wanted the higher increase, to cover the cost if you didn't get some of the grants. We know that, we read the reports. So 6.5%, that's probably well within the confines. I congratulate you there, Drake. Good job.
Thank you.
Jackie Terwilliger. I live here in Yreka. I have already scratched off 2 paragraphs because of what was discussed that covered, but there's a few points I want to make. After the last meeting, I went home and checked my newspaper to find the notice that had been put in. I found it in the very back under the legal section, which nobody goes to unless they absolutely have a reason. I would suggest that if you're going to make a notification, you make it where we can see it on the front or second page. To me, it was just the bare minimum knowing or notifying people. And also, I keep hearing about how we pay for bottled water and coffee, and it shouldn't be a problem for this rate increase. I don't buy bottled water and I don't drink coffee. I have a family member that works at Walmart, and the majority of the water there is sold to firefighters or the growers that are illegal out at 812. You've also said that you could have charged or raised our rates a higher amount and you went with a lower amount. Isn't that the equivalent of we could have cut off your foot, but we're only going to take your toes? It still hurts. It's still a financial pain for us. I just don't understand why that it's even gotten this far. It should have been something that was brought up publicly and not the bare minimum to notify citizens here. And then you could have had a larger venue where people could have been more informed, like Councilman Hague said. And I appreciate what both of you have done tonight. People here support taking care of all of these issues, but not at these kind of rates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Louise Gliotto and I live in Yreka. And I'm aware that the council members are not allowed to answer any questions from the public during public comment. I'm requesting that the council consider my questions before you do the second reading and vote on this ordinance this evening. I'm assuming that's what you've decided to do because it was rather confusing. Are we voting on the original? Is that what this is? I guess you can't answer me. I'm assuming that's what's happening. I wanted to know, I have several questions I'd like to ask the council tonight. Did you look at the protest forms to see who was protesting the water and sewer rate increases? If you had, you would have seen that at least 2 prior Yreka City Council members, 2 prior mayors, and a District 4 county supervisor protested the water and sewer rate increases. Did you read the engineering report on page 6? Why was it that there was $750,000 city hall upgrades included in the PACE report? What does that have to do with water and sewer capital costs and services? Were you aware that at least 14 small local Yreka businesses had protest forms on their counters to hand out to their customers? By the way, these forms were printed at the expense of volunteers. The city protest forms were almost impossible to find on your website, nor were they mailed to each ratepayer as they did in Reading. Why did Yreka not do the same? Did you take into consideration that the median income in Yreka is $44,444 and the poverty rate here is 20%? There are 795 65 people and older seniors in our community who are on fixed income, and who we just got notices, as Lorenzo Love pointed out, and oftentimes I don't agree with him, and on this one I do, that this Medicare folks are getting 3.2% increase in cost of living expenses. Also, that people ought to be aware, and you ought to be aware, that Pacific Power is proposing to increase our rates by 25%. And if you know anything about the Pacific Power, whatever they ask for, they get. The CPUC always gives them what they want. These rate increases will be especially hard on our elderly who are on a fixed, very low income. And lastly, I'm asking tonight that the council consider a compromise, which you've already discussed, and I'm glad that Councilman Haig and Davis brought this up, and to have an amendment to the ordinance. I would propose to increase the rates 5% in sewer and water rates every year for the next 5 years. You can't get any closer representation than local city councils for representative government. Thomas Jefferson said, "The government closest to the people serves the people best." Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. Diane Collier, and actually scribble down some notes here. I'd like to agree with the previous speakers up here. And first of all, I would like to thank Drake for stepping up and making a different proposal. And Dwayne, you too, for rethinking and taking a step back. That is what the public wants. I don't care that you only got 500 in the, from us, but the majority of the people are unaware, and all of a sudden it's going to hit them. We are well aware that it's been increasing 4% every year, because I remember thinking, finally, this is the last year my water bill is going to go up. I was actually kind of happy. And then this came, you can imagine that mood change. And so I am agreeing with the numbers, the math that these guys are talking about. 9% sounds really benign over the next year, but when you add it all up, you're pushing that 60% mark. That's huge. That means my bill now would go from like about $118 to $214 in the next 5 years. That's huge. And for low income people, I feel for these people, but then when you give them a break, who picks it up? We do. So now it's even more. And that's called redistribution of wealth. Thank you very much. And I'm really sick of that lately. But I am a little bit confused about why we're paying for, it seems like this is kind of the cash cow to pay for everything. As I know you're aware, the county, I've got 27 vehicles in my fleet. We can't just impose something like this in the county so we can cover the cost of all of our vehicles, because we got to do our job too. And it's like, it sounds like this is the cash cow covering every single point. It's not just covering infrastructure on water. This is everything else that you guys want in here. And as the citizens, this is our money. This is our city. It's not, just 5. And so we're trusting you guys to look out for us. I'm not sure why, and maybe this will, was gonna ask why the new well is at a, we have to boil it if we use that well, why that wasn't set up. So we don't have to, and maybe that's part of this. I obviously don't know the history on that. Pace Engineering, I mean, they're a heavy hitter, and they're used to dealing with people all over, and they are not in tune with this, they come in here and they throw their big numbers around. And you know what? I don't have any, as far as pace goes, that doesn't impress me because they are not in tune and they are not in touch with what we deal with here and how we live. And so I know you don't have many choices to get this from, but when you're looking at these guys, they don't give a rip about us. They don't care. My neighbor just told me that she pays $200 a month in the summer now. She's my next door neighbor. What do you think she's going to pay with this? Another 60%? That's crazy. It's just crazy to me. And I would suggest next time, I would hope that you would take a step back, that you would give us a new a proposal to think about and maybe make it a little bit more visible. I do believe there should be a list of activities because I was unaware that we've got equipment in there, like we're going to be buying new trucks. Sounds like there's some capital improvements in there that is not just water infrastructure. I think we need a list of every single thing this is going to pay for. The citizens need to know every single item, what we're paying, what this is going to do, and what's going to be paid for in this. I would suggest too, it was made that, oh, you guys have been working on this for months, and I'm going to say, and I'm not doubting that you have, but I got this, 3 weeks before this? 3 weeks. I'm like, what? 3 weeks. This is your date. You better get your paper in and then try to find that form. That was ridiculous. And then we come to the meeting and now it's just like, oh, it's too late. You guys should have been here. When we were all talking about, where were you when we were talking about this months ago? Shame on you. That's not fair. That is not fair. I don't appreciate that remark. And I don't appreciate feeling like this was going to try to go to a vote before we got some public comment. That's not cool. And that pretty much covers. Everybody else said the rest of it, but I am thankful that I really would appreciate you guys to take a step back and give us a different proposal with some better rates. I still think 6.5 is kind of steep. 4% seems like a hell of a lot, just even every year now. We're getting hit on every side. Everybody is. I know you can't just go and never have an increased cost. We all get that, and you're right. You want to get fire covered? Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Steve Radford, 409 Evergreen. The thing is that, you guys, it's not you against us. We're all in this together and we really need to, be together on this. It's not the city against the people against the city. If it is, we got to stop it right now. This is not going to work. We got to have this. We got to be a community working together, and we can't work with California. That's a fact. California is screwing us big time. That's why these rates keep coming up, and you guys are answering to their bill every single week, every single day. The county answers to their bill. They can't even negotiate anything within the house because they're dealing with everything from the state all the time. The state doesn't run the county. The state doesn't run the city. The cities run the county. The county runs, the counties run the state. We got to take our money back from the state. The state is ruining us. If we had the money here, we kept the money here, we wouldn't have this problem. We got plenty of money. The resources we have here with logging and milling and everything, mining and everything, and ranching and everything that they used to do in the 90s when that chart was, very productive. We've lost because of the state, because of the communistic state, the movement that's going on in this country. You got to get that in your heads. I keep telling you, every time I come in here, I say the same thing. Communist California is not our friend. We got to take our own county back. We got to take our cities back. And the way we do that is stand up. We need leadership. The other thing I would like to say is that when you started this thing in September and we just heard about it 3 weeks ago, that's crazy. We should have known about this all along. This is what we're thinking. It should be in the paper. You know, but that paper is really right or left wing leaning, so it doesn't tell us what's really going on. But anyway, if the people of the county or the city can only afford so much, you know, there's an audit in there somewhere that shows you that the people of this city only afford so much as a whole. And then in that, we take what we can afford, not just come across with some thing from Pace Engineering or Stackerman or whoever's putting this thing up, that this is what we got to have and you're going to step up. We can't afford it. It's pretty simple. It's very simple, really. Thank you. Oh, and then too, thank you for the consideration of putting this on the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jan Osborne. I live at 1027 North Street. And I came tonight because I protest. And I protested against the rate increases for both the water and the wastewater. I, at my own expense, had 200 forms printed to distribute to people who, for one reason or another, could not find it on the city website, did not have the facilities to download it if they had those facilities. And for me, I don't even have a printer. So I'm very much interested in this. And at one point, I sent you all an email. I think it was December 2nd. I received a reply and an acknowledgement from one council member. So I don't even know if you read it. So I'm just going to tell you what I said in that to be sure that if you did read it, you'll hear it a second time. Repetition is good. At that time, I said I was opposed to the increase. And I suggested that a 4.5% increase on both the water and wastewater was something I could support. But my last paragraph to you was, in my opinion, the best solution to this is to do it over. Start over. I watched the video of the November 21st meeting. I wasn't at that meeting because, like many other people in this community and around the country, we were with family or traveling to family. And so I chose to be with my family rather than to come, but I watched the video. And I think if you listen and watch that video, the people that spoke did a very good job, and as the people did tonight who spoke to you, of identifying the flaws in this process, the flaws in notifying and informing people, even that they had a right to protest. There were some people who never got that word. So I suggest you start from the beginning, listen and follow and see what those flaws were. Don't let it happen again. And I've had one council member say, well, we didn't get everything right, but we'll do better next time. That I don't want a next time on this. Don't pass this 9.5 and 9.6 thing and put it on us. Follow the suggestions. And my final statement in my email was, be wise. Listen to your constituents.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I will close public comment. I'm not gonna go. So we'll go back to the city council. And we're still on item 8A. Oh, do you have? Well, I'm saying we're still on item 8A, so if you have questions.
I have questions on regarding procedure like Mr. Floyd is asking. I definitely been agreeing with fellow Councilman Davis on the rate increase. That was actually what I said earlier. Bring to the council tonight is 6.5. I do have other questions on size of meters and stuff like that I don't necessarily agree with Mr. Davis on it, but as far as the size of the meters, keep it the same across the board with everybody. As far as 5/8 on it to 1 inch. I do agree with 6.5, but I don't agree with the 1 inch and all the others. I feel that I know that could be cost, real bad cost for the city of Yreka. Could cost us a lot of money if we raise those, keep those at the same rate of 5/8 and 1 inch. So I don't agree with that. I think that the people that have a 5/8 or have a 1 inch or a 3/4 inch one is a residential, then we need to work out something where their meter gets reduced down to 5/8 if it's a residential. And that's what they need, if that's what they need. But I don't, because there's a lot of other size increase when you go to a 1 inch versus 5/8. People could have businesses or possibly a usage for 1 inch. That means that, they also have this huge yard that they should be paying a little bit more money for.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're asking you to get closer to your mic and turn it on.
Start all over again.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
Thank
let's
you.
start
Thank
real
you.
quick. I agree with the 6.5. Mr. Davis stated the meter. I do not agree with because there's a cost influence that's a cost for the city on that. Most residential people around here have a 5/8 meter, possibly a 3/4 meter. That's all they really need on the most part. If you do any type of irrigation on your lawn and everything, and I've hooked up water systems before and done water, sprinkler systems and everything else for people. So I know that size wise that 5/8 is adequate for most lawns. Unless you have a huge area that you have to irrigate. And those people are usually when they have that big of an area to irrigate, then they can afford to have a bigger meter and afford a little bit more. So I don't necessarily agree with the meter size, but I definitely agree with the 6.5 increase that Mr. Davis suggested. So I trying to, I guess, clarify that in this with our attorney, which do we go back now and do we bring forward, if we have multiple suggestions, do we bring this to our city manager and he brings it back to the next meeting then? If that's the case.
I'm just gonna chime in here. At this moment, anybody can make a motion. And so that's kind of where we currently stand. You can make a motion on something completely different. You can remove your concern over the 5/8 to 1 inch difference with Mr. Davis's proposed hypothetical that he's discussing. It's really up to the city council at this moment to entertain a path forward. But I'll let Mr. Jared chime in.
So your question was multiple motions?
Well, I guess we would be doing multiple motion or something then, because because I don't necessarily agree with the size of the meter.
Okay, so to address, it sounds like continuing to look at Exhibit A of the ordinance. There's water rates, then there's wastewater rates. And you're in agreement with making an adjustment to the proposed Exhibit A percentage of increase across the board. So instead of it being the 9.5%, it is 6.5. Correct. So that would be one proposal, and then the rest of Exhibit A would stay the same.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is that what you're?
That's basically the clarification I needed. Yes, correct. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, done.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Cake.
And that was the percentage change that was only on the consumption charges.
It'd be consumption charges, yes, correct, Will. Across the board, single family.
Right.
Wastewater rates and all that stuff, still the same, 6.5 also. That's all based on a percentage basis too.
Is it going down then to the wastewater utility?
Correct, that's a percentage
Wastewater
also.
rates?
That's all based on a percentage also. I think that's what Mr. Davis was presenting too, is across the board. Is that correct, Mr. Davis? 6.5 across. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I interrupted.
I was looking at the meter charges and I kind of think that I made several mistakes there. And I think we should disregard those.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But as far as your wastewater rates, you're doing it, basing it off of 6.5% also, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And the wastewater, yes, it's 6.3%.
6.3, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. You did present 6.3. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilman, anybody, I guess, actually. Anybody else have any further comments before we move on to? Councilman Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would just like to address a couple of additional things that I took into consideration at the last meeting. One of the things was that I asked city management to take a look at the rate for low income.
No, not you. She's.
No, I'm trying to get the heat up.
Temperature.
Oh. And to take a look at that process and to come back to us to see if there was anything that we could do to increase those low income rates. So I know that that's in the process. And then also any of the emails that I received, I forwarded to the city clerk and they've become part of the official record. And the reason I'm mentioning these things is that I do pay attention to procedures. And you know, this is so difficult. Nobody's happy about having to make these rate increases. And it's just a very difficult decision to make. So I want to just state that it's not something that I take lightly. I have listened to people, and yet you also basically hired me to do a job. And that job is to make this city as healthy as possible. And I really am interested in taking a look at how a lower rate of increase is going to affect the city. And so with that, I'm going to make an attempt at a motion here, and that is that we consider a rate increase of the 6.5% for water and the 6.3% increase for wastewater, to revise the ordinance to come back then for a second reading. But along with that, I would also like to see a report from city staff on what this increase is going to, how it's going to affect the city. And so that's the motion that I'm going to make.
Okay, so just for the record, the motion is on the table from Councilman Baker for a I'm gonna make sure I got this right, 6.5% increase for water and 6.3% for the wastewater. and you want to bring it back with those changes, see what the city, how it affects the city or what it looks like. Correct? Okay. And I got some hands up over here. Councilman McCoy.
Point of order, are we taking a vote on the second sheet that we're looking at, or is the vote on the first, on the original 876 ordinance? I'm asking for clarification.
So the motion on the table, as I understand it, is amending Exhibit A water rates, consumption charges to reflect a 6.5 water increase from current rates. I'm unclear about the monthly service charges, if that was included or not in the 6.5.
Oh, no, it doesn't include the current.
Okay, so the motion would be to amend the current ordinance presented in the agenda packet, Exhibit A, as it reflects the consumption charges, not amend the monthly service charges, and then to amend the wastewater utility recommended wastewater rates to reflect a 6.3 change over current rates.
Well stated.
Okay.
Yes. That is my motion.
And then the second part of the motion was, the second item on that motion was a report from staff as to the impacts of those changes.
Yes.
The reduction of what the current proposal or the current study showed. Got it.
Yes.
So that's the only motion on.
I think you want clarification. I want.
They both have clarification, so.
Is that what you want, Paul?
And then I'll need clarification with the,
You need clarification?
well,
I need clarification.
for the change that he just read. So I'll go to Councilman K.
The percentage rate, you're not doing the monthly charges. You're keeping it with the 9.5 increase then on the monthly charges? Because that's what you're proposing. Or are you doing
My-
6.5% monthly increase charge? Because it's a percentage across the board. Sorry to confuse you, but that's what you're stating to our attorney, that you're only doing the consumption rate and not the monthly charge rate. You're leaving the monthly charge to what was given to us, was presented to us as a council at 9.5.
I
Putting you on the spot.
intended to make a motion to amend Exhibit A to replace the 9.5
and 9.6.
the 9.6 increase in water rates to the 6.5% as recommended
And that's
by
also the
Councilman
consumption
Davis.
rate also. Consumption and monthly, correct? 'Cause that goes across the board. I just want you to make sure that is clear to everybody.
So
Yes, that's across the board.
So that would be the monthly charges then too.
So that was the question I was asking.
That's what
I'm
he's
sorry.
asking you.
Can we put Exhibit A on the board again? So Exhibit A has the consumption charges on page 44 of the agenda packet. Exhibit A, and this is the chart with the blue bar.
Councilman Davis. Councilman Davis. Councilman Davis.
He's gonna bring it up on the
Okay.
screen.
It's taken away the city.
Okay. Andrew, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No problem.
As soon as it's on the screen, then we can
Oh,
be easier to examine what we're talking about.
Okay, so that chart right there.
There we go.
Now it's all blue, but the blue bar across the top, the chart with the blue bar across the top, there are two parts to it. There's the consumption charges, per 1,000 gallons, and then there's the monthly service charges And my understanding of your motion was to amend Exhibit A as it relates to the consumption charges only.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I would like to also, the monthly service, that current
Okay.
meter monthly service charge also at 6.5%.
All right, so then the motion is to amend Exhibit A and introduce for first reading an ordinance amending these charges with Exhibit A to be redone, reflecting a 6.5% change over current rates across the board in that chart that is on the screen. And then as to the chart below in green, wastewater rates, that would be amended to reflect a 6.3% change over
Yes.
current rates.
Yes.
And when you're saying current rates there, you're meaning that are currently in effect and being paid by folks at this time.
That's my intent.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, and
Thank you.
Understand?
I understand. I just want a clarification. because
Right.
I knew what
Thank
she
you.
was trying to get across, but the point wasn't getting across.
I think there's sufficient clarity there for us to draw that up for an amended Exhibit A to be presented and presented here tonight as first reading on those issues. I don't know if any council members have questions about what that.
I believe, Councilman McCoy.
Yeah, I have no, there's a motion on the floor. I have no questions. I want to first thank publicly Councilwoman Baker for bringing the low income adjustment to our attention. I know it was something we heard from the audience last time, and I want to thank Retta and Jason for listening, and I know they've been working on it. You know, we're seeing tonight why people say, I don't think any of us sees us as a politician. Any of us, I don't think we want to be career politicians. We don't do this for the money, even though we get paid the big bucks. We don't do it. That $135 doesn't, you know. But it's kind of, we're kind of like they say about the law. If you watch it in order, or you watch, it's kind of like making sausage. If you watch them making sausage, you wouldn't eat it because of what goes into it. We're not going to be popular no matter what we say or do. We have a very great and a very vocal crowd here, and have the last couple of times. I have equally vocal people that talk to me and say, well, listen, I'm not happy about it, but I need to have, we need water and sewer. We need it. And, you know, it's very easy again to turn around and just go, you know, because we know, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm glad that Mr. Davis brought in another proposal, but it's not, when Emily does the numbers, it's not going to pencil out. And that's the reason we hired Emily. That's the reason we hired this city manager. And that's the reason that we hired an assistant city manager that's sitting up in the corner. We hired them as a council. Well, some of us did. I know, I don't, you two probably weren't on at that point in time. So, but we hired them because we have to trust them. We ask questions. We meet with them weekly. Most of us do. Some of us meet with them more than weekly. Again, I want to thank Mrs. Baker because she's working on the finance committee, and they do meet. They're going to be meeting more than weekly. I know a lot lately. So we've hired somebody to do a job, and I know it's come up at other meetings in the last year. When we've had a recommended city council action, and some of us have said, well, Mr. City Manager, do you support this? And I can remember what your answer was. I don't put anything, I don't put a motion on there unless I support it. And you've discussed it with all of us, all the five of us. And we have discussed it. It's a difficult pill to swallow. you and I are all on fixed incomes. You know, and inflation last year was 7.6% according to the federal government. Last year, Social Security got the highest raise they've ever gotten. Typically, Social Security, since it was started, remember, for all of us, Roosevelt started it during the Depression. It was a temporary program, 10-year program. And then Eisenhower felt that he would not get reelected if he did not vote for it. So politics, yeah, politics is like making sausage. 2% has been the highest that's been given historically. Last year, I think it was 6 or 7. This year, as it was pointed out, it's going to be about 3.6, and I'm happy to see that. But it doesn't keep up with you can say inflation is 2%, or I was doing the numbers here, and it's, I think over the last 8 years it's 20.9%. But it still, we know it doesn't keep up. Our bills cost more now. Again, we're paying more for gas, we're paying more for ground beef, we're paying, many of us are more apt to eat beans and other things that are less expensive than we are to buy a steak. That's a decision we make. It's a decision we make, and we're going to make in life as being this baby boomer generation. It's a decision we're going to make whether rates raise here or not. But I'd like to think we're making it in a city. I just read an article that says that our county, Siskiyou County, is the second most desirable county to live in, other than Lassen, for home prices. Because in other counties in Northern California and Southern California, home prices are exorbitant. I think they're kind of exorbitant up here. But so, I mean, we have a desirable community. We want to keep it desirable. We hired Pace because we trust them. We can go get a firm out of Medford. We can get a firm out of Portland. We can get a firm out of Sacramento. We can get a firm out of San Diego. I mean, do they live here? Do they know what we deal with? No, they don't. I've only been here 38 years. I'm a flatlander. And I think if I asked most of you out there to raise your hand, most of you were flatlanders. Most of you weren't born and raised here. You haven't, some of you have, but not a lot of you were born here. So I'm a flatlander. I'm reminded of it. When I go to Rotary, I'm reminded of it everywhere I go. I'm a newcomer, but this is my home. I love it. I want to be here. I would like to see my kids come back and work here if there was work for them. If we don't take the advice, the financial advice of the people that we have asked to run this city, then maybe we need to get other people to run this city. Get people that are going to agree with us. Maybe we need a yes man or a yes woman if we're not going to take their advice. Thereby, I will make the motion to adopt ordinance number 876.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So I'll make a
Councilor
second.
McCoy. So I have
Two motions.
two motions, the motion on the floor with the
No,
I
I said
don't
I'm
know.
going to take a second on somebody's, but we have two motions on the floor.
Oh, now.
All right, so procedurally at this point, there was a motion
Mhm.
without a second. There was then a subsequent motion. Currently,
Well, we never got an opportunity, Mr. Attorney.
well, it procedurally, it would work that the motion was made, someone would second it before another motion is then made. So we have a motion that is not failed, but has died for lack of a second. And then subsequently, another motion has been.
I
made.
thought we were in the discussion stage, Mr. Jared.
No, we were in the vote with the
Well,
discussion.
it is.
Mr. Mayor did not ask for a second on
There was no
Colleen's
clarification.
motion,
I did clarify for a second. I would
and I thought I
raise
heard
his hand.
Mr. Cake second it.
That's
No.
why I heard a second is a statement of a second as well. That got us into this.
He jumped
second
in and made a motion
dis-
before that.
discussion. So if we want to clear the air here,
The mayor
and
asked if there was any more discussion, and there was no more discussion.
Yes, I was getting ready to I was getting ready to say I have a motion, and then he jumped in and made the motion, or Council McCoy then made the motion.
Don't we have to clear the first? motion?
Excuse me. Hold on one second.
So
Can I have the floor back, please?
the
Procedure?
reason this, to
Or-
clarify, the reason this becomes.
Or Mr. Mr. Jerry can have the floor back.
The reason this is
me.
important to clarify which motion is first and which one is last, you take in order of voting, you then take the last motion to vote on. And then the first motion is then dealt with later. So
Right.
at this point, I think there's no motions literally on the table. There have been two motions motions made. I haven't heard a second on either of them, apparently. So
Correct. So what I was going to do, and you correct me if I'm wrong, what I was going to do is
I will
the
second
motion.
Colleen's motion.
Mr. Davis, Councilman Davis, you can't do that. I'm trying to explain the procedure of what was happening before, and then Councilman McCoy jumped in before because no second was made, and so that's where we're at right now. But I was going to go to the first recommended motion to see if there was a second, and then Councilman McCoy did make the motion, so I was going to go around with the first motion, but I got interrupted. Right? So, yeah.
right, so again, the order of vote
Mhm.
would be on the last motion that is made.
From Mr. Councilman McCoy.
If that motion prevents the first motion made, then there's no additional vote made.
Okay.
So in other words, just ask if there's any second on McCoy's motion.
I also would like to make a clarifying point, not only for tonight, but just in the future, is that there's no requirement for the mayor to request a second. As soon as a
No.
motion is made, I just would advocate whatever that motion is. If you believe in it, state your case that you want to make the second.
Correct. I know I made the second after I'm sorry, Councilman Baker stated her motion. No one made the second after that, correct? Yeah, so that's the reason. Yep.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious there's going to be a second on that.
I don't
motion,
know.
so.
But now I'm gonna go to the last motion that was made from Councilman McCoy. And his motion was as presented. The motion to adopt ordinance 876. I'll second the motion. And I'll do roll call. Councilman Kaeg.
Nay.
Councilman Davis. This is the last one that was presented, the original from Councilman McCoy.
Gotta get to speak.
Nope.
Councilman Baker,
No.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
and I will be aye. So the motion fails 3-2. So now I will go back and if there is a second on Councilman Baker's.
Oh, we need to make a read motion.
I don't think so.
Do we need a motion or do you just
already
need
made it.
direction? At this point,
Oh, no, it would be appropriate to have the motion restated.
Restated? Okay.
Yeah, restated.
I would.
Councilman
uh,
Baker.
Thank you. I would make the
Jeez.
motion that ordinance number 876 be amended with a 6.5 increase for water consumption and monthly charges at 6.5%, and the wastewater be increased to 6.3%, with the city manager, city staff to come back with a report at the second reading on the effect of these changes.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Yes,
This is first reading.
I have a first. Oh, okay.
And this would be, as this is an amendment to exhibit A of the ordinance, presented the first reading, of that ordinance.
Okay. I have the motion from Councilman Baker and a second from Councilman Davis. I'll do roll call. Councilman Kaeg.
Aye.
Councilman Davis.
Aye.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
Councilman McCoy.
When I went to my training for California League or California cities,
Order, please, in the audience.
one thing they told us as a council person is if you don't know the ramifications of it, don't vote for it. But don't abstain. You need to vote no. So I will vote no because I don't know the ramifications of less revenue.
Okay. And I will, I just don't know there's more information before I even make a vote and even see what's in front of us. And the report, I abstain from the vote. So the motion passes 3-2 with Baker with motion, yes. The second with Davis, a second. Kaeg, yes. No from McCoy, and Middleton abstain. All right. Okay, item number 9. This is
There is
there's
no
a public
item,
hearing.
there is no item number 9, just a
Oh, yep.
placeholder. So
Okay,
moving on to.
All right, no new business. Well, correct. Mr. Ledbetter.
Yeah, that's correct. We're on to 11 city manager staff reports.
Okay. Item number 11, so city manager and staff reports. City manager and staff may make brief announcements and reports at this time.
So yeah, I'll just have a real brief report. This is, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is city manager, Jason Ledbetter. And so ultimately.
Hold on one second. Excuse me. We are in session. We do not have conversations in the audience. Please follow the rules. This is a meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, so ultimately, I'm just going to really focus on one topic here for my staff report. We heard from the fire chief at the start of this meeting, and earlier today we had a finance committee meeting where we started to kind of unwrap some of the issues that we're having at the fire department or historically have had at the fire department and what we consider some possible solutions. And so ultimately, we're going to continue to work through the finance committee on that item here over the next probably month, maybe 2 months. And then we plan on bringing something to the city council with a suite of different options to choose from in order to hopefully rectify the issues that we're having. When it comes to just the increase in medical calls and the loss of volunteers over the course of 30 years. So that's really all I have. And other than that, just for everybody, I think I've sent out notifications. I will be off this Thursday and Friday, and then I'll be back on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. And no other staff members are coming down, correct?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to speak.
Oh, I didn't know you were on. I'm sorry. They were not informing me. Mr. Bray, how are you?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'd just like a quick staff report here tonight. The rationing that we experienced this week is over. Wanted to just clear the air on that one. I know we had some difficulties getting the word out. If the folks out there listening tonight, if you have a water account, a utility account, I ask that you update your phone number. Our auto dialer calls only those that has the phone number attached to the account number. So staff and I are diligently working on that to find some other options. I heard a few members of the public tonight and over the last week saying that Facebook's not the answer. At this point, that's what I have. So we are working on getting something better. And I really want to give everything I have out to my water operators for over the last week. Roy Hathaway, your water manager, Mark Bates, water operator, Steele Sims, water operator, John Diaz, water operator, and Benjamin Miller of our maintenance and operations. He's our manager out there. Those guys were out on site from Monday morning until Thursday afternoon. And some of them were sleeping on cots 23 miles from home. And I want the public to understand that we have the most efficient, diligent, and safe operators I could ever hope for as a director. And I hope that the public understands that. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. And we appreciate, and I appreciate, I'm sure council members will have their comments as well, but I appreciate you and our staff keeping us informed and really working hard to get our water back in line and protect our citizens. You did a great job. And so, yeah, it's very important that people update their phone number, because I received 4 calls in a row. I don't know how I got 4 times, but I was informed that everything was going on. So it does work. The system does work. And the city is reaching our folks besides Facebook. So that is, you just want to make sure you're signed up. Okay. So thank you so much. All right. So I'll go to council members for reports. Councilman Baker.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Let me see. In the last 2 weeks, I attended a C2C meeting on November 28th. I also attended a virtual new law workshop that was sponsored by the California League of Cities. That was on November 27th. And in the next couple of days, I'll be forwarding each of you a synopsis of the new laws. It's 157 pages. There are some interesting changes coming forward. So I'll be quizzing you at the next meeting. So, especially with regarding to funding for homeless programs, changes in the conservatorship programs in California, the definitions of who falls under those. So I think those are some positive changes. They also, interestingly enough, please bear with me, because you'll know, if you know me, you know I have a sense of humor. There was also a proposed new law that allowed changes, increasing council members' pay based on the inflation rate. So I got a kick out of that. Yeah. I really appreciated Mr. Bray's report, and I just have a couple comments on that. I think that for the communications ad hoc committee, that having him come forward and just kind of giving us kind of just an overview of the process and what worked well, what we can improve on, I think is really good information for the communications ad hoc committee meeting to have. So I would like to see him come forward at our next ad hoc meeting. And then I would also just ask my fellow council members to consider resolutions of appreciation to our water operators, because they really went above and beyond the call of duty. So.
For sure. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kaye, I'll go to you.
I'll keep mine short and sweet. Of course, tomorrow we have our homeless meeting, so we'll be discussing a number of different things, but yes, any information you can bring forward on homelessness, much appreciated. And in regards to the homelessness, we need to have, I think, a council serious talk about what's going on up what everybody refers to as a hill. It's getting definitely out of control, and we know our legal rights. And I think it's time I know we can use so much, weather permitted, but we need to start getting some cleaned up there. So I think that's going to be a conversation with Mr. McCoy, and city manager on homelessness, on where we need to move forward on that real soon, because we have a whole bunch of new individuals that's moved into the area. I don't know if a lot of people are not aware of that, but there's probably a number of newbies up on the hill that a lot of people are not aware of. So it has grown in size. I thought it was going to shrink in size, because of the weather, but it has actually grown in size. So I think we need to get serious on addressing this issue real quick. Back to the water situation. Yeah, I want to thank Matt, Bray, and the crew, the city crew. I mean, they went above and beyond fixing the water main. My question is, being this is not our fault, maybe, I don't know if Matt's still on the line or not, who pays for this? Because we have a lot of overtime that's involved, and I'm thankful for our city workers, but this wasn't necessarily our fault. So I think we need to find out who's flipping the bill for that, because shouldn't be us flipping the bill for it. So.
Yes, Councilman Keg, this is Director Bray. I neglected to mention that because he's no longer a water operator, but Robert Taylor, our previous water operator, he was also out there. I can't forget Rob. I always forget one. We got a lot of guys. The city is not paying for any of the repairs or the time spent on this pipeline relocation.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bray. I appreciate that. Yeah, don't disregard Mr. Rob Taylor, because he's been our number one guy from day one. He's awesome. He's awesome. We don't want to forget him.
No, we cannot forget Rob.
Yeah. No, good guy. He's worked hard to where he's at, and we're with our water situation because of Rob. He's done so much for our community and city of Yreka with the water situation. Very knowledgeable guy. I just want to thank everybody that's in the audience for coming and voicing their opinion about the water rates and sewer rates and everything else, because that's why we're here. I stated that before and time again, that we're here to be representation of our citizens, and wherever that means, doesn't necessarily mean we're always agreeing with everybody else's fellow councilman, but it's just, we are here to make that decision for our constituents and make sure that we're making the proper decision. So I thank everybody for coming. I wish we'd have a packed house on every city council meeting, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I got more to say, but I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Keg. Councilman Davis.
Matt, I think you and your crew did a great job, and you kept us informed very, very well. The pictures that you and photos you sent, they were just phenomenal. It's just amazing to me how good the job you did out there. And that's why you get the big bucks. So remember that. Good job, Matt. I also frequented the Night of Lights. It was a little wet, but it went off and it was pretty fun. There was quite a few people down there, and it was a good job. It was a fun time. When it comes to this fire ad hoc committee, I think Mr. Lemus is involved in. Is that where you're thinking about working on addressing the issue of the vote for the sales tax initiative?
We're talking about solutions at the finance committee is where we're now transitioning. We did a number of fire ad hoc meetings that included Councilmember Keg and Councilmember McCoy, and kind of got the rendition of what are the problem statements, what are the things that need to be rectified. And so now when we're talking money to resolve those issues, we're now transitioning to have that conversation in the finance committee.
Oh, okay.
So we had the first one today at 3:00, and we're going to have, I believe, another one on the 12th. So.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe we have a fire safe council meeting next Tuesday. That's on the schedule. That's all that I have.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Davis. Councilman McCoy.
I want to thank my fellow council members for robust debate. And as you all know, if you've watched me for 5 years, you know that I am concerned with procedure. Procedure is what tends to get us in trouble. So I thank you for the robust debate, and I appreciate everybody's input tonight. I want to commend the Elks for doing a great job with the parade. I want to agree with Councilman Davis. Night of Lights, although it was a little bit wet, was seemed to be well attended. But it was worth it. Jerry, if the city does not pay your electric bill next year, just let me know, because I know we had to get it took a while to get the lights turned on. We were all wondering if the electric bill had been paid, you know. But the tree looks fabulous, and thanks to PP&L, was it PP&L that put it up? So thank you to them.
And the new lights.
And the new lights, yes. Matt Bray, kudos to you and the staff. You did a great job. I did get 3 or 4 calls. I monitored Facebook, and it would come in, and the pictures you put on Facebook, I know everybody doesn't use it. But it's usually people that are like over 50, I think, probably. But you guys did a great job. And the nice thing about it was we didn't have to go into the mode we were in prior to Fall Creek, where several people, including OG LeBaron, told me that we all had to quit watering our lawns in July and let them die, and then couldn't start watering again until October. So thank you for everything you did.
We appreciate that. And I'll pass it on.
All right. Thank you, Councilman McCoy. All right. Let's see. Kind of the last minute, I was getting asked why I wasn't going to be in the parade, the holiday parade, but so at the last minute we had arranged for me to ride in the parade, and I was able to ride in one of the hasn't hit the streets yet, but I was able to ride and was honored to ride in the new one of 2 police SUVs, two Chevy Tahoes. So it's new to the fleet. They haven't had those, and I believe one's gonna be the K9 and one's gonna be used for whatever. I think the sergeants. But anyways, Roomy and Beautiful is brand new, so they got to showcase that, and so I did end up squeezing in there riding in the parade because people were asking me why I wasn't going to be there, and they said that I needed to be, so I did go and ride, and it was a pretty good turnout. So trying to think what else has happened. I don't think anything else really. It's getting late. I want to thank everybody for coming. I know it's not easy to sit here, sometimes, and a lively debate. It doesn't have to be, personal or angry, and it was very healthy tonight, and different opinions, and we move forward and we listen to all the citizens, and I received, I heard a lot of people not wanting the increase, but also I received just about as equal of people understanding the increase. So I heard from both sides of the aisle, and so we'll come back and we're going to hammer this out and see how we'll proceed with it. But I appreciate everybody for their hard work, council members, staff. They put in a lot of time, Emily, and so we'll go back to the drawing board. But with that, I will wish everybody a good evening, and we will be going into finish up our closed session because we do have 2 items that we did not get to previously. So thank you and good night. Meeting adjourned.